Fantastic. This meeting of the Beavercreek Board of Zoning Appeals is hereby called to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Archibald?
Here.
Mr. Botla is absent. Mr. Durr?
Here.
Mr. Hung?
Here. Can't I have a motion to excuse Mr. Butler?
I move to excuse Mr. Butler.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
So moved, so approved. Today is September 11th, 2019. It's currently 6 p.m. First thing that we need to do today is look over the agenda. Do we have any amendments to this agenda, or can we approve it as is? Can I have a motion?
I move to approve the agenda as written.
I second that.
All in favor say aye.
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 So, and the next thing we're going to do is look at the minutes. The minutes are for our last meeting, at which I was not present, for June the 12th, 2019. I presume, Mr. Archibald, Mr. Dewar, you've had a chance to look over these minutes.
Yep.
With that presumption, do I hear any changes to the meeting minutes?
I don't see any.
None from me.
And there being no proffered changes, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes as written.
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Now, going to the fun part. That would be the public hearings. The first matter before the board today is a conditional application, I should say, for a conditional use permit. Case number CU 19-1. Request was made by Anthony Amine, sorry, I'm not sure, of American Tower at 4040, I guess it's the location, it's 4040 Graham Drive, I think, correct?
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Great, so can I have the clerk read out the ad, right? Thanks.
Yep.
This is case number CU 19-1 on an application filed by Anthony Amin, 200 East Big Beaver, Troy, Michigan, 48083, requesting permission to construct a new wireless telecommunication tower and adjacent equipment building as required per Chapter 158.130B of the City of Beavercreek zoning code in an A1 district. This is a replacement of the wireless telecommunication facility that was destroyed in the Memorial Day tornado. The property is located at the western end of Graham Drive, further described as Book 1, Page 6, Parcel 9 on the Greene County Property Tax Atlas.
Thank you very much. Now, if there is someone here, a representative of, or in fact, the applicant for this particular permit, if you would like to come to the front and present the reasons for which this board should grant the permit. Before we start, sir, there's a little card kind of at the top, I think the top left of that podium. If you could just read it out and fill in the blanks where applicable, we'd appreciate it.
Certainly. I, Anthony Amin Associates, 200 East Big Beaver Road, Troy, Michigan, 48083, affirm that the testimony that I am about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals, the City of Beavercreek, is the whole truth to the best of my knowledge.
Well, thank you very much. You may proceed.
Thank you very much. Again, good evening. My name is Anthony Amin. I'm here this evening on behalf of American Tower Corporation, the owner of the tower at 4040 Graham Drive in Beavercreek. As stated, the existing tower was damaged due to the tornado in the Memorial Day holiday. This application is, I'm here this evening for permission to obtain approval to construct a like-for-like tower, which would be, we're replacing the old tower, and we're going to replace it with a 164-foot self-support tower at the exact location. And the new ordinance, and I'm sure Mr. Burkett will discuss it, is for a monopole. Based upon the geographical area and the location, it seems more appropriate they would do a like-for-like replacement. It would not change any visual impact to the area that the residents are used to seeing. They'll see the exact same tower that was there previously. That's essentially it. Again, it's right where it used to be, and I'm here to answer any questions or provide any more information that you may have.
Thank you very much. May we have the, staff report? Thanks.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Randy Burkett. I'm the city planner here with Beavercreek. The case you have before you is CU 19-1. Again, the applicant's looking to receive approval for a 164-foot self-supporting telecommunication tower. We're up here in the northwestern corner of Beavercreek, or near the northwestern corner of Beavercreek. The tower is located at the western end of Graham Drive. It's about 1,800 feet north of where Kemp Road and Grange Hall Road meet, so you're just north of that. As the applicant stated, there's been a tower there for over 25 years. It's been there for as long as, our aerials go back. I've got aerials go back into the mid-90s, and it was there at that time. So I know the tower has been there for a long time. In the tornado on the Memorial Day weekend, it came through and just leveled that tower. You could see it was just completely wiped out, as well as obviously many of the structures nearby. So what they're looking to do, the regulations right now state that all new towers must be constructed as a monopole. The applicant called and asked about constructing the pole, the tower back as it was previous to the tornado, and just to err on the side of caution, we wanted to get BZA's approval for a conditional use because they're going for the self-supported, tower rather than the monopole tower. Where it is now, the foundation and the buildings are, it's over 150 feet from the southern property line, about 300 feet from the residential properties to the east, and there's a residential structure. It was heavily damaged during the tornado, but what's there now is well over 350 feet away from the proposed location, or the location of the existing foundation. The infrastructure is in place for this pole as it was constructed before. It was 164 feet before. It's proposed at 164 feet. Staff didn't see a problem, but again, we wanted to bring this before the BZA for their recommendation and approval. We do recommend approval. There are 2 conditions in the staff report for your consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions following the public hearing. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That being the staff's report, I'd then like to open up the floor to anyone who would like to make a comment or to provide testimony regarding this application who is in the audience today. Does anyone want to come forward and make a statement? Please, sir. And again, just as a reminder, sir, if I could have you read the top of the card there on your top left, filling in the blanks where appropriate, that'd be great.
Let me get my glasses out here.
Understandable.
I, Randy Bryan, affirm that the testimony that I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Beavercreek is the whole truth to the best of my knowledge.
Great. Proceed, please.
What he just said, to replace the tower, the visual there, you can see the base of the tower now. I live right on the property right behind where the tower is, at 300 feet away. I'm about where that property line is, comes up to my property. If you go down Laban now, you see a tower behind it you never saw before. And if you went down Laban, it was hard to see the tower there existing. Now you can see everything. I mean, if you drive down Laban and you put a big tower, you're going to see both towers there. It's going to look like an oil well field. So I disagree that the replacement is there. The trees are all gone there. The trees hid the towers before. Now they're not going to hide them. It's going to take the trees years to grow back, and that's my concern there, because it doesn't do any good for the area. And I don't think anybody would want towers in their backyard of that size. Before, I could see the top of the tower. I mean, you get used to it, but now I'm going to see from the base of the tower all the way up, looking out my back door. So that's my concern. As far as going with the monopole, I don't see why we can't go with the monopole. It's going to look better than the existing one was. And like I say, if you want a visual of it, just drive down Laban, and you can see what it looks like. So that's basically what I have to say. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, sir. Does anyone else in the audience would like to come forward and give testimony regarding this application? Yes, sir, please.
I'm Bill Sheeman. I live at 3971 Laban. I, Bill Sheeman, affirm that the testimony that I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals of the city of Beavercreek is the whole truth, and to the best of my knowledge, is the whole truth to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you. Proceed.
So I'm against granting the conditional use. Staff showed you what the profile of the previously existing cell tower looked like. You didn't see the profile of a monopole. It's aesthetically a much better looking structure than what's there now. And as the previous resident said, we see more of this tower than we ever did before. We see the complete tower. And it's my opinion that your zoning code was probably upgraded at some time to specify monopole because they're aesthetically more pleasing. And it's my assumption, because they're asking for conditional use, that there wasn't an exclusion, an explicit exclusion in that zoning code that grandfathered in existing cell towers. Typically, this is why zoning codes are upgraded. I mean, you don't grandfather in everything, especially when it's beyond damaged, it's destroyed. Okay, the only thing left there that can be reused is the base. Probably the foundation can be reused, and I'm sure that's a motivation for the cell tower company to want to replace like for like. But our neighborhood, if you look west of Grange Hall and you look north of Kemp, those neighborhoods were devastated by the tornadoes. Okay, we're asking you not to grant this. We want a break. We want the cell tower. We're not against the cell tower going back, but put something back in there that has a less negative aesthetic impact than building that thing back. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience would like to make a statement regarding this particular application? Yes, ma'am, please.
Monica Donahue at 3971 Laban. Affirm that the testimony that I am about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Beavercreek is the whole truth to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you.
I too am opposed to the conditional use. I'm in favor of the monopole because of aesthetics, and it also could be painted green. So that would be nice too. And I feel zoning made this change for a reason, and I think we should be compliant with the new zoning code. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else in the audience have any statements to make regarding this particular application? No? Okay. Well, we do have an email that we received. Clerk, I believe we received it from a Ms. Janet Gum. Did you want to read this, or do you want me to read it? Sure. I'll go ahead and state the name and the address then, and I think I'll read it just for the record. It reads as follows. Members of the Beavercreek Board of Zoning Appeals, City of Beavercreek, 1368 Research Park Drive, Beavercreek, Ohio, 45432. Board members, I cannot attend the hearing on September 11, 2019, where the application requesting permission to construct a new wireless telecommunication tower and adjacent equipment building will be heard. However, I want to express my support of the construction of the wireless telecommunication tower and adjacent equipment building. I have been told this tower is to replace one which was destroyed by the tornado on May 27, 2019. I've also heard that many of the neighbors living in that area are not able to receive the signals as well as they previously had due to the absence of the tower which is being proposed. So I suspect they would be in favor of the tower being constructed, even though they may not be living in the area which received a notification of this hearing. Thank you, Janet Gum, 2555 Grange Hall Road, Beavercreek, Ohio, 45431-1712. Is there any other input from the audience?
On that,
If you please come back up, yeah, just so we can hear you a little better. So.
on the letter that you sent out, it was talking about replacing the cell tower. It didn't say that, what the code is now. And as far as, I believe where she's coming from, and everybody's got their own opinion, but she's coming that, yes, we need to replace the cell tower because of the signal. But when you read the letter you sent out, that's all that it looks, unless you look into it. You don't know that it's the difference between the two towers. All you know is the replacement of the tower. And a lot of people assume that and just, it's not really in depth what you sent out as far as what's going on. So, and I think that, in my opinion, that's where she's coming from. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other input from the public? Please.
I would like to reinforce what you just heard. I didn't know about the mono tower or the monopole until I came down to the zoning department to find out about it. And, for those of us who have made the decision to reconstruct in those neighborhoods and continue to live there, we need your support. We want to build that neighborhood back and give us the best cell tower you can. And I think other people would have been here had it been clear what was at issue. So I think that's one reason for, maybe the turnout you got tonight is they didn't really understand what was being decided. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, is there any other public input at this time? Seeing none, then I'd like to open up the floor to my fellow members of the board so they may inquire from anyone who has spoken before them today. Mr. Archibald?
Thank you. Mr. Burkett, please address the podium.
Yes, sir.
Quick procedural question. If the applicant was to construct a monopole tower at this site, we wouldn't need this conditional use permit, is that correct?
Yeah, we would just issue a permit for that.
Okay. All right. I think that's all I have for you, for now. Don't go far.
I will be right here.
Can would the applicant come up to the podium, please? Thanks, Mr. Amin.
Certainly.
So we've heard from residents in the area, and is there any substantial benefit to reconstructing a similar type tower that you had before instead of replacing it with a monopole tower?
As alluded to, the preference is to replace it like for like. I think one of the neighbors mentioned there is an existing foundation right now for a self-support tower. And if you've been to the area, it's a very limited area. There's elevation changes, et cetera. For the applicant slash American Tower to come out, they'd have to pull out the old foundation of the self-support and drill a larger caisson for a monopole. Most people don't understand caissons for these monopoles are probably 20, 30, 40 feet deep of concrete in the ground. So it would be a hardship for them, and also be for the property owner because of the elevation changes. I would like to think we could keep it within the same compound, but until you do the investigation of the existing foundation for the self-support tower and the new design for a new foundation for monopole, we're kind of in uncharted waters. I would like to also state that we're replacing a tower. We're not putting a new tower up. I'm not here looking for conditional use approval to put up a new tower.
Right.
As the residents are allowed to replace their homes, make it look like it is, we're asking for the same consideration.
I agree. I understand that. And I think that we've heard from the residents that they're not against having a tower there. I think they're looking for one that's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing or fits better into that environment. Is there anything aside from the landscaping, the elevations there that would keep you from installing a monopole tower?
No, sir.
Okay.
It'll be, again, it's just the engineering dynamics of
Sure.
taking out the old one, putting up a new one.
Sure. Okay. All right. I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Yeah, please stay, sir.
Certainly.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you all for the input. I live fairly close, and so I did some investigating. I came down Graham Drive, also looked at the Bayview and Rushton, so going through the Garden View neighborhood. From what I can tell, there are 2 existing structures as well in that area, so this would be a third.
There are, and I'll defer, there's 2 temporary towers up right now.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to.
Yes.
Typically,
Okay.
they're called COWs, C-O-W, cell on wheels.
Sure.
So the carriers that were on the tower that was damaged came off, they put up their temporary towers, temporary facilities until we can get the permanent structure back up.
Okay, so those would come down, and then the permanent one would
That is
come back.
correct.
Okay, thanks. Sorry for your loss in terms of the tower. Yeah, it hit us all hard. Did you go through insurance to get replacement for trees or something like that? That, I mean, maybe wouldn't be perfect now, but in 10 years could block the view for the residents and kind of where the 2 of you could come together in terms of aesthetics.
I do not have access to that information. I was,
Okay.
I'm solely hired to come out and do the real estate zoning of that. I shouldn't say, because I'll purely be speculating if they have insurance to come redo it or what have you.
Sure.
If there are any, landscaping requirements, I'm sure we would comply with those.
Yeah.
But as far as putting trees back up that the tornado took down, that's a tough one.
You can't do that, but it's I mean,
Correct.
the neighborhood's completely different from what it was. And,
Absolutely.
So,
It's not just a tower. Everyone's looking
Yeah.
at houses and backyards, and I went by the area today, and it's sad to see what was happening. I mean, all the devastation, the roofs, the houses that have been taken out. It's a new way of living for these residents, unfortunately.
so from the residents' perspective, they want to rebuild, they might want to sell at some point in the future, protect their investment. I mean, is there a way where you can come together, where aesthetically you can make some changes or put in some trees as additional conditions for this that might bring people together to support this, where the audience would come together and say, okay, I'm behind you now on this?
There's something we can discuss, but there's also a wonderful phrase, beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Sure,
So
absolutely.
some people think a solid metal pole, galvanized steel, is more, unsightly than a 3-legged, less,
Absolutely.
solid structure.
Thank you.
Certainly.
I just have a couple questions for you, and I might as well keep you up here.
No. I don't
Interrogate
want-
Mr. Burkett a little bit closer.
Sure, yeah. I don't want to presume I'm going to stand here and have airtime, so take your time.
I'm not going to get you to get up and down. This
That's
this
fine.
isn't the wave.
That's fine.
So, I actually echo a lot of the concerns of the residents here, and I'm a little bit concerned, given the radically changed nature of this subdivision, as to whether or not having what we had before is number one within what the zoning, what the council wanted when they changed the code in relation to wireless telecommunication towers. But also, I'm concerned because, again, you see this drastic change in the neighborhood, and we all kind of have to deal with that. So my first question to you, though, is regarding your request, can you explain to me in some detail as to what technical reasons you believe there might be that you have to put up a replacement tower as opposed to putting a new monopole?
As far as technical with respect to the operation of the tower, there are none.
Okay.
Again, as I mentioned to Mr. Archibald, it's purely an engineering decision. Right now, you have a self-support, basically 3 legs. There's foundation for those 3 legs in place. The elevation, it's a lot easier to just put them right in. To build a new monopole, you're going to have to pull, depending upon the exact location, you may have to pull out the foundations of those. You're going to have to get in a new crane in to drill the case on. It's a little bit different construction process. So it is going to be more challenging to do a monopole. Is it impossible? Absolutely not.
Okay.
It can be accomplished. It's just in an engineering standpoint, it's going to be more difficult.
Okay. So let's suppose for a moment you install a monopole, all right? And so we're not here today, but you install a monopole.
Absolutely.
Would that monopole have the same technical ability as the self-sustaining tower, I think that's what it's called, right? A self-sustaining tower that you intend to rebuild?
Yes, sir.
It's exactly the same. Is there a monopole better or worse? Or how would you, from a technical standpoint, would you consider a monopole to be a more advanced version of the tower, or pretty much on the same level?
They're identical structures. Well, they do the exact same thing. Self-support tower and a monopole tower. You can have platforms. You don't have antennas sticking off the sides. If it were a stealth tower, it's a lot more difficult to get co-locators on there. But from the two structures, they can still provide the wireless carriers the structure that they need to operate it appropriately.
Okay. And I guess this is my final question for you regarding this particular line of questioning. Are there any plans, if we were to deny you the permit today, would American Tower then simply build a monopole because that's what they're required to do, or would American Tower be looking at different sites, even though it probably still has a lease for this land?
I would defer to them, and unfortunately, I don't have that information. There is a need. It is a network. Typically, they don't like moving towers, but if we had to move the tower and put up a new tower, we'd have to abide by the new ordinance, which would be a new monopole.
Right, that's true. Oh, okay, so I lied. That was the second to last question.
Could you put that on record, someone, please?
That's okay.
The chairman's lying to me. I'm done.
Forgive my brain. Sometimes the questions, they keep coming.
Take your time.
And with regards, that being said, there's still an enforceable lease with the property owner for the cell phone tower, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And from what I'm hearing from you today, though, would it take the same amount of time to reconstruct the old tower as it would be to install a new monopole? Or would there be a substantial delay in the completion of a monopole tower relative to how quickly you could put up replace the existing tower? Or the prior
Monopole tower will take longer. Again, it's a new design. We're basically starting over. We'd have to come do the soil test. We'd have to find out what type of foundation is, for lack of a better word, under the self-support tower. Again, we have to figure out what is there. If it's a bunch of cement, we'd have to rip it out and, regrade it and then design a caisson based upon the soil composition of what the soil is now versus when it was 25 years ago. So it'd be a whole new design, and it would take longer.
Okay. I have no further questions, finally. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Burkett, very quickly.
Yes, sir.
So I've read through the staff report, and I'm still getting stuck on one point, but I wanted to find what the city's position is on this. What are, in your opinion, the technical reasons as to why we should grant a conditional use permit here?
Yeah, from a technology standpoint, I don't have that answer for you, but when we're throughout the process of rebuilding the neighborhood to the east, when there's been a nonconformity, we've allowed people to rebuild their sheds, their houses, even if there's a slight nonconformity, say it doesn't meet the side yard setback, but the foundation's already there, we've extended those permits to people to rebuild as it was before, and we're just here to extend that same opportunity for the commercial business as we are with the residents.
Okay, so
But from a technical standpoint, we can't see a difference between a monopole and a self-supporting tower.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the word you just used, non-conforming. And, I guess I have a little bit of an advantage in knowing a little bit about non-conforming uses and its application in the law, because I'm currently stuck in a very long lawsuit about that issue. My question to you is this: why hasn't the city looked at the reconstruction of the tower as simply a non-conforming use of the property? Why are we here today on a permit?
I was just erring on the side of caution rather than just making that decision unilaterally. I wanted to at least, give the opportunity for the BZA to hear it rather than just okaying it.
Okay.
It's a bigger structure than a shed would be, or.
That's true. But is it your opinion? I presume that you've spoken to council about this, but where we are today, I'm not going to ask you what
I
council
couldn't
thinks. But
presume
I'd
to
ask
know.
you, is it your opinion, just as a planner, that really the reconstruction of this tower would fall under a non-conforming use anyways, but you're just dotting your i's and crossing your t's?
It's I mean, the code says that all new structures have to be created as a monopole. So, technically it would be a non-conforming because it's not being built as a monopole.
All right, but you would agree with me that at least prior to the destruction of the tower, the self-sustaining tower, the self-standing tower, that this land was used to have a self-standing tower. It was used for the leased out for purposes of cell phone signals, and so really there's been no change in use. I mean,
The use is, yeah, I mean.
you're just rebuilding the shed, for lack of a better term.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, it's the use is conforming. It would be the structure would be non-conforming because it's not a monopole.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thanks. I guess at this point, we'll just close the public hearing portion. Can I do that, clerk? Mine's a little add-on. And I'll go ahead and open up, this is not for additional testimony, but I'll just open up the floor to my compatriots here to discuss this particular case. And I'd like to see if there's any debate as to, how we feel about what's here before us. Do you have any further questions, I guess, is the real big thing. Dan?
Well, I would pose it to the audience members. Is there a place where you can come together with the applicant? I mean, under what conditions would you support this application? Is it additional? If we put it in the writing that they have to build, plant however many trees, or change the aesthetic appearance, something. I mean, is there a place where you would be okay with the existing application?
How high of a tree would you have to plant to hide the tower, though?
I
I mean, our trees in the neighborhood
it's-
are would kept you from seeing the tower. And they say there's a tower back there that's
Sure.
still gonna be there no matter what happens.
But is it?
There's not trees.
I think
Sir,
so.
can you come to the
Yeah,
microphone?
I guess
Can't hear you.
my question is, I mean, the tree's not going to grow overnight, but if they
Yeah, but
put in
they're not gonna
and
grow.
so-
I mean, even if you have trees, I mean, how tall is the tower?
164 feet. So-
How many trees do you see that
Sure.
are gonna be that tall? I mean, we had a lot of old trees in the neighborhood that blocked the tower. When you drove by at Lebanon, we had
Yeah.
trees that blocked everything. You're not gonna have that even if you plant trees over in the area around there, which I don't know if the owner of the property would do anyway. I mean, that would probably be up to her.
So your
I
answer
wouldn't-
is no? That
I
you
don't think that planting trees would do it. I mean,
Okay.
we're all gonna plant trees anyway.
Sure.
But before, I could look out my back door and I could see the top third of the tower, which, we accepted, but it's not going to do it. And one thing I just want to say when they were talking, he was talking it would take time to do. They've had temporary towers in place for 3 months. If it takes time to build a monopole, they've still been using the temporary towers. I don't think time's really a thing. I think it's more of what the zoning is and, what's good for our neighborhood. I mean, let's say if you did plant trees everywhere and it 10 years wouldn't be able to do it, let's say 30 years, how's that going to help the people that have property there right now?
Because, I mean, he can still put a monopole and you're still effectively in the same situation. So here's
But it's going to look a lot better than the other one.
But here's also an opportunity to add conditions. So I'm giving you the chance to speak into this.
I don't know what conditions that
Okay.
what can you do? I mean, it's a visual thing that
Sure.
we're talking about. I mean, you're not really going to be able to, as far as I'm concerned, hide it anyway.
Okay.
I mean, you try to make it look the best. I mean, there's going to be a tower there, we know that. But why not have the best that we can have there, so it looks good in the neighborhood? Okay?
Good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any further questions, Dan?
Yeah. So I think we have an opportunity here for a win-win situation, maybe a partial loss situation for the tower owner. I think it's going to cost them a little bit more to rebuild. But I think that if we were grandfathering a tower that was still in place, that would be one thing. But I think we have an opportunity here to get into code, replace the tower with the same technology, and also make the commercial tower, a better business partner with the community. So I think we have a win-win opportunity here to replace the existing tower with a monopole tower.
Here's what we're going to do. I would like to go ahead and call a vote, and I would like to call a vote to approve of the resolution that's been provided to us in our packages, gentlemen, which is resolution for Board of Zoning Appeals, case number CU 19-1, which would essentially be a granting of the conditional use permit subject to the following conditions. Number A, letter A. The approved plans for this application shall be those stamped as received on August 12, 2019, except as modified herein. B, the height of the pole shall be limited to 164 feet from adjacent grade. C, prior to the installation of the tower and associated equipment, the applicant shall apply for and receive approval of a zoning permit from the Planning and Development Department. And D, should the use of the facility be discontinued, meaning the structure is not properly maintained, has been abandoned, become obsolete, has been unused, or has ceased daily activities or operation for a period of 12 months, the applicants or its successors shall be responsible for its removal. So those are the conditions on this conditional use application. So do I have a motion to approve of the resolution? All right. Do I have a motion to deny the application?
I would like to move to deny the application for case number CU 19-1.
I will second.
All right. May I go ahead and have a vote on that one?
Mr. Durr?
Yes.
Yeah, yes would be yes. Mr. Archibald?
Yes.
Mr. Hung?
No. That being said, then the application for a conditional use permit has been denied by vote of 2 to 1. We encourage that the applicant continue to work with the city in order to hopefully come to a more appropriate resolution, perhaps by working with neighbors. And I'm sorry.
That is-
I see a head shake.
It has to be a vote of 3 to 0.
I'm sorry. So there has been no resolution to this. I guess we have to table it for the next meeting then, correct?
Okay.
All right. We then would like to encourage everyone who's here today, as this motion hasn't carried by proper vote, there's been no resolution to this application. I apologize for misstating that. I will say again, this particular matter has not been resolved. We will table it for our next meeting, at which point we welcome the applicant to come back and to represent, maybe with some information, additional information. And if the neighbors would like to come here, perhaps with more information, or other neighbors to express their point of view, we will then take that into consideration as we take another vote on the application. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
You too.
Thank you, sir. Moving right along, I apologize for my misstep there. Hopefully it's the last one. We have before us a request for a variance. Application for a variance. This would be case V 19-4. Can I have the advertisement read, please?
This is case number V 19-4 on an application filed by Michael Kraus, 4212 Golden Eagle Court, Beavercreek, Ohio 45430, requesting a variance from Chapter 158.105C of the City of Beavercreek zoning code, requesting permission to construct a 6-foot-high fence that would encroach into the required front yard along Golden Eagle Court. The property is located at the northeast corner of the intersection of Golden Eagle Court and Willow Run Drive, further described as Book 3, Page 4, Parcel 14 on the Greene County Property Tax Atlas.
Thank you. Is there a representative of the applicant here today who wants to give testimony at the podium? Good day, sir. If you could please read the information at the top left, there's a little card there. If you can read that before you testify, I'd appreciate it.
No problem. I'm Michael Kraus of 4212 Golden Eagle Court. Affirm that the testimony I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Beavercreek is the whole truth to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you. Please read.
Yes, so when I initially applied for my permit, all of my Melissa's laughing. All of my paperwork said 35 feet from the curb would be the closest that my fence got. So that was the permit that was approved. When I had my final inspection for layout I had made a calculated error myself and was 33 feet. And so that initial was denied. And so then, excuse me. So then the permit was then aired and sent back for review, and then it was changed. But upon the approval, that's what all my planning was done at. All my purchasing was done at the 35 feet from the curb. As you can see in the pictures that I have provided with you, the ordinance in question, to the best of my knowledge, because I'm a corner lot, is to protect against visual impedance from the stop sign. As you can see, I have a couple of people holding a brown sheet to try to give the appearance of where the fence would be, and there is no visual impedance from the corner of Golden Eagle onto Willow Run, from Willow Run in either direction of what the proposed fence would be.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think that's all. This is my first time up here, so.
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
If we have any
All right.
Yeah, thanks. Have the staff come over and give the report, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Zoning Appeals. I, Sandra Pereira, Associate City Planner, 1368 Research Park Drive, affirm that the testimony that I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Beavercreek is the whole truth to the best of my knowledge. The applicant is requesting approval of a variance to allow a 6-foot fence that would encroach into the required front yard by approximately 7 feet. The property under discussion is located at 4212 Golden Eagle Court within Section 1 of the Cinnamon Creek Farm. The properties within Cinnamon Creek are actually located within a residential planned unit development. Within that residential planned unit development, the front yard setback for houses is actually 35 feet. This development was approved prior to the city being incorporated, so I'm not sure how things happened here, but the majority of the houses are actually set back at 30 feet instead of the 35 that was required in the PUD. Regardless, when it comes to 6-foot fences within these residential districts, Section 158-105C states that the no fence wall or hedge shall rise over 42 inches within a required front yard. However, it does go on to say that in the case where the principal structure falls within the required front yard, fences up to 6 feet high shall be permitted in the required front yard, as long as said fence is no closer to the public right-of-way than the principal structure. So basically what it's saying is, if your required front yard is 40 feet, but your house is at 30 feet, then your fence can also be at 30 feet. So when we change the code to allow this, it basically allows for a fence to go right along your house, because the house is encroaching, so the fence, there shouldn't be an issue with the fence encroaching. So as the applicant stated, he came in for an application and discussed with Melissa what he could and couldn't do. At that time, it was explained to him that, you know, the fence would have to be outside of the required front yard. It could come off of, it would be allowed to come off of the back of the house here and go back, straight back, which at the time it was stated that it was 35 feet. But once we actually went out and measured, the fence is allowed to be 30 feet from that front property line, because the house is 30 feet from the front property line. So in this drawing, the red shows where the code allows the fence to go, and then the black line is where the applicant is proposing that the fence go, which is so 30 feet from the front property line to the allowed fence, or 23 feet from the property line to where the applicant is proposing that that fence go. As you all are aware, in order to approve a variance, the applicant has to show that they can't meet the requirements of the code And in this case, I mean, that's not really, I mean, that's not the case. Obviously, the applicant can set the fence, you know, the 7 feet further back. And the fact that Melissa checked off the wrong box in our new program isn't really justification for approving the variance. Our zoning inspector went out to the property. The whole purpose of doing these inspections is to catch these things before they happen, and that's what happened. He caught that it was in the wrong place, told the applicant that it would have to be revised, and so we are here now. So based on that information, staff cannot recommend approval of the variance request, and I can answer any questions following the public hearing.
Sounds good. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience here today who would like to come forward and give testimony regarding this application?
Yes, sir. So I, Dr. Michael Haddisall from 4211 Golden Eagle Court, affirm that the testimony that I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Beavercreek is the whole truth to the best of my knowledge. So if you had the zoomed out picture, you could kind of see my house. It's just directly across the street. That one right there, that's where I live. So just moved here earlier this summer, PCS to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And became good friends with my neighbor Michael here. We both have the name Michael. But when he kind of explained to me this dilemma he had with his fence, personally, I couldn't believe it was an issue. If I was him, I wouldn't have realized that it was even something you would have needed a permit for, I suppose, just because of how far it was back from the curb. And if you would go back to the zoomed in image, please. If you could see where his black line is, it is significantly in from the line of trees back there. The trees that are, significantly, I don't know how old they are, but they'd be several, probably decades old, and no one has ever said anything. They've not impeded public safety. My kind of point to this whole thing would be, to me, the zoning permits would be the whole point of safety. Does this impede line of sight? Does this create any type of traffic hazard, any type of public safety issue? And in my opinion, it does not. It is looking just standing out on the curb of that corner. It is well beyond any line of sight impediment that you can have. And I feel like I understand what the lady here was saying about the purpose of the zoning, but at the same time, I feel like there should be exceptions based on, if it actually impedes the purpose of the permit or just the very letter of it. And I feel like in this situation, if this is not going to be allowed, then also something needs to be done with the trees, and there's all kinds of other issues that I feel like the city would more or less open by establishing that this is some kind of public safety concern. So that's my opinion. As a neighbor across the street, I do not feel like it endangers me, my 4 children, who are all young. I would feel comfortable with it being there and still feel like it'd be a very safe neighborhood. So if you have any questions, again, my name is Dr. Mike Haddisall. Thank you.
No problem. There being no one else in the witness, in the audience, I'm going to presume that there's going to be no more participation from the audience. But I'm going to open up to my compatriots on this panel, and if they'd like to begin asking questions, that'd be super.
Sure, I'll go. I got questions. So, Ms. Pereira. Okay.
Yes.
So, some things here.
Sure.
First, I think that Mr. Kraus, is Kraus, right? Yeah, Kraus, okay, is the victim of having 2 front yards.
Yes.
If he lived one house to the other side, it would be the 10-foot setback, right?
The majority of our variances applications here are for corner lots with 2 front yards.
Right. And in looking through the code, so did Mr. Kraus apply for the variance to that specific paragraph C? Or was that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the variance was for a variance from paragraph C.
Okay, all right. So in reading a little further, I came across paragraph D, which essentially says that front yard setback and visibility requirements, fences, walls, or hedges shall be prohibited closer than 10 feet or 12 feet from the curb, closer than 25 feet from the center line of the streets. And when I got to that point, I was a little confused because it seemed to contradict paragraph C.
Yeah.
But it may be because paragraph D applies to fences that are only 42 inches high?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah, so paragraph D essentially follows paragraph C. So paragraph C tells you this is what you're allowed to do in your front yard. And then paragraph D says when you're doing this, these things also need to be taken into consideration. So with a 42-inch fence, it's allowed to go all the way up to your property line. However, it can't interfere with the visibility of driveways or intersections. It has to be outside of the public right-of-way. It can't be any closer than 25 feet from the center line of the street, and it can't be closer than 12
Right.
feet from the back of the curb.
Right, so if he was installing a 42-inch fence,
Then
where
paragraph
he
D.
wanted it, he'd be fine,
Exactly,
right?
yes.
Okay. So that's potentially an option. I don't know how hell-bent you are on a 6-foot fence versus a 42-inch fence. But the other thing, too, is looking at this picture here, it looks like the front corner of the house is closer than the back corner of the house to the street.
That this corner
Yes.
is closer than this corner.
Right. And I'm wondering if that front corner of the house could establish the distance from the road as opposed to using the back corner of the house. It just says where the structure protrudes into, right? I'm picking nits here, but.
No, I understand, but I think because the property line curves, like if you look at the curve, even here, like it's not, it may be inches. You see how, like, so we're going from here to here, it's actually further.
I'm also kind of
And
looking
here
at
to here, not
the black
from
line projected
Right.
forward, right?
But it's not this one, it's this one.
Sure,
And it's actually, it looks like it's further from here to here than it is from here to here. Again, we're nitpicking here. but-
Well, exploring opportunities.
Sure.
Okay, so I don't. Can you help me understand a little bit better how the mix-up happened? I mean, what it was that not trying to point fingers at people.
No.
But
So we have a new program for our permitting. And within that program, there are little boxes on where you would put the 35. So the fence was supposed to be 35 feet from the front property line.
right.
So instead of that 35 being put in the box for the front property line, it was put in the box below it for the curb. So 35 feet from the curb instead of 35 feet from the front property line.
Okay.
Before that happened, the applicant and Melissa had a discussion on what he could and could not do,
Got it.
and he was told that it needed to be 35 feet from the front property line, not from the curb.
Okay. I think I'm done asking questions for now. I reserve the right for seconds.
I have a few questions for Mr. Kraus, so thank you, Ms. Pereira. I like to ask this at every meeting, but if you have a homeowners association, if there's any input or issues that, if you do have a homeowners association.
We do not,
You do
and I
not?
purposely live where I live because there is not.
Sure. I live in one and we have all kinds of restraints, so I always like to ask that question, so.
2 points real quick is on my initial application, I wrote 47 feet at the closest or at the furthest and 35 feet from the curb at the closest. That is on my initial permit application. Melissa and I talked about that. I was not told property line because I even put it in the curb spot. So now we did have a conversation when I came back after the initial inspection was failed, but not for the initial permit. Second point is, if you look at the black line, they have it coming off of my back corner and addressing the road. That is incorrect. I'm going off of the back corner of my house. Can I borrow that little pointy red thingy? That's fancy. So the back corner here, which would be 45 feet from, or 47 feet from the curb, is where the back corner of my house sits. And I'm asking to go at a slight angle, basically because I don't want to go through the middle of a tree. I want to include the tree in the fence. And if you look at the pictures I gave you, you can see the trees and the difference as well.
So the variance request line is incorrect?
The variance request line on this piece of paper is incorrect, yes.
So it would actually
It would
slope
go
down?
Yes, it
from
would go from the
corner?
back corner
like that.
to here, like, it
Okay.
would go like that. And if you look at the pictures as well, you can see a pink twine, and I purposely used pink in order for it to show up. You can see the line that it would take. And it would start at 47 feet because it would come directly off of the back corner of this house, of my house. And be, the closest it would get would be 35 feet from the curb, is what I ideally want.
Does staff agree with the assessment in terms of the line that Mr. Kraus has explained?
Do you agree?
The line may be incorrect here, so what he's saying is just this little point here wouldn't come out here, it would just come out this, but the variance is still for a 7-foot variance, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
He's still asking for a 7-foot variance from the
Okay.
required 35-foot front yard, 30-foot
Look,
front yard
let
setback.
me jump in real quick. So where is that 7-foot variance then? Because it's not from the corner of the house.
It's from the
It's gonna
back
be
line, back of the
from this
line.
point here.
Okay.
So it,
It would
will
be from-
3.5
from one of my
feet,
trees.
And then it will go down to 0.
All right.
In driving by your house, Mr. Kraus, I saw that you'd already started building on the right side.
Yes, sir.
So, have you faced any hardships? That is, did you purchase materials having
Yes, sir.
obtained
Everything was
an
purchased
approval?
and planned based upon the initial permit that I received.
So you've already incurred expenses for
Yes,
what
sir.
you thought was
All
okay.
of the wood is sitting in my driveway.
Yeah,
And right
'cause
now,
I can see this here
Yes,
already
and-
built,
and
okay.
right now I can't, and I'm incurring expense every day because I can't continue the construction because I was waiting on this
Sure.
as well.
And there's no concrete in the ground that I could see or anything like that would
Not
be
on
an
that side.
additional-
I've completely had to halt construction on that side.
Sure, okay. Okay. I mean, in terms of the reasoning for the fence, any security issues in the neighborhood, anything that,
The
for
reason
you
I
and
need
your
a
family?
6-foot fence is because my wife told me I have to put in a pool eventually.
Okay.
So I need a 6-foot fence.
That sounds like a practical difficulty or hardship to me. I don't know.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hung. I appreciate that. I heard you lived in the general vicinity?
No, not in that area, no.
Oh, okay.
So, out of curiosity, why not a full 42-inch fence along that side?
Because the city of Beavercreek says I have to have a 6-foot privacy fence in order to have a pool.
Okay. Okay.
And my
So
wife, again,
okay.
my wife is a very stringent little person.
I didn't realize the pool was part of it.
Yes.
So, okay.
Something nice, secure. I have
Sure.
2 young boys.
Absolutely.
My neighbor Mike's, his sons come over. I want something safe and secure for them to be able to play, for my dog to be able to play, that I don't have to worry about anything from the road coming in, because I know that a 6-foot privacy fence that I build myself, it's going to be able to take a lot of damage. A 42-foot fence, a lot of stuff can get over, can come back and forth. A little bit different when it's the height of a person.
So no other comments from the neighborhood? Dr. Hartzell's here, he's given his testimony. Has anyone else commented? I mean, I can maybe think of the neighbor across the road.
I
Have
talked
they
to her
seen
yesterday.
anything?
She didn't receive a letter, so I guess she was outside of the 500 feet. But
Okay.
she was like, she was fine with me
Go ahead.
building the fence. I've had no complaints by anybody. A couple of people like Mr. Hartzell are confused that I can't put it up where I want it.
So you've got a fairly small cul-de-sac, I'm guessing a pretty tight-knit neighborhood?
Yes, sir.
Everyone's in favor, as
Yes, sir.
as you know? Okay.
The neighbors directly
Behind
on this,
you too?
no,
Yeah,
right
yeah,
here,
yeah. Okay.
they actually helped me build what's up so far. The neighbors back here I talk to quite often, and he's in favor of the fence, just because he likes his privacy, and I'm in favor of the fence because I don't like that he doesn't mow his lawn.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
I just have one question. You just mentioned this, and I didn't quite hear it too well. So basically, you're building off the back corner of your house, and we don't dispute that.
Yes, sir.
And then when you get basically to the property line, it looks to the north, if you will, for lack of a better term.
Yes, sir.
You're looking at maybe getting a variance of about 7 feet at that point.
Yes, sir.
And I heard you mention something about a tree. Is that because of the way your trees are placed that you have to build your fence that way? Or could you technically build your fence as the red line suggests?
There are trees in both areas. This, where the red line suggests, runs directly into a tree. Mine runs in between two trees. So I would have to shift the fence even further in in order to meet the requirements. Whereas at the 35 feet that I'm requesting, it goes directly between two trees. And I can still keep the aesthetics of 3 trees on the outside, 3 trees on the inside, and still keep it pretty for the neighborhood.
Okay, that's all I had to ask.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
I do have a second. Hang on just a second.
I'm sorry.
So when you run the fence to the trees, the perpendicular piece of the fence is going to be behind the trees, between your trees and your neighbor's property?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Along the red line back here, you'll see that's where it'll go.
Oh, I
So
see.
you've got to get it through the trees.
I'm going directly
Okay.
through the trees. Yes, sir.
Hence, okay.
All right. That's all I have for you,
Oh, okay.
Mr. Kraus. Thank you very much. But Ms. Pereira, I have another quick question. Do you know typically how far the property line is off of the street?
It's usually about 12 feet.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Dewar?
No.
I have none, so seeing as there's no more questions, we'll go ahead and close that portion of the hearing on this particular application. Gentlemen, did you guys want to discuss further, or can I have a motion regarding whether or not we approve of or deny the request for a variance?
Just want to take up a point that Mr. Archibald made in the beginning. That is, effectively, this gentleman has 2 front yards, and that's one of the challenging components of this case. So I want to concur with that point.
Yeah, and I want to also, bring up the point that, being a corner lot is fun and not so fun, and this is the not so fun part. Also, I think that there's, at least in my mind, some testimony of some practical difficulties. And it sounds to me as if Mr. Kraus wants this variance because he essentially wants to put the fence between trees, as opposed to tearing one or the other down. I think that does suggest a reason that we maybe want to take that consideration. I mean, he said it's built to the back corner, and I'm willing to take his word for it. So, yeah, so that's what's on my mind right now.
Yeah, I was basing a lot of my my perspective on this picture, right? The black line doesn't run to the corner of the house. That would have been a different, I think, a different story for me.
Okay.
But since it does run to the back of the house and kind of angles back toward the street, I think it's less of an issue.
Okay. Can I get a motion? Is there a motion to approve the granting of a variance? Let's start there.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
All right. Let's get a roll call vote on the motion to approve the variance.
Mr. Archibald?
Yes.
Mr. Durr?
Yes.
Mr. Hung?
Yes. The request for a variance is thereby approved. There being no further business according to the agenda here today, can I get a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I move to adjourn.
A second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you very much.